you set a goal and all you're focused on is that goal, then you only feel successful down the road, rather than focusing on the daily implementation of the system and the process and the habits that you instill. If that's where your happiness lies, then you experience that success and that happiness and fulfillment on a daily basis, rather than only allowing yourself to experience success, whenever that goal is reached, if you even reach it. What's going on, and welcome to the Take a Step podcast. I'm your host, Josh Johnston, founder of Take a Step. It's a community that's focused on bringing together like-minded individuals who are all purpose-driven towards taking action to maximize their God-given potential. If you find value in this podcast, please leave a rating and review on whichever platform you're listening. It really helps us to continue to grow this community and change more lives for the better. Feel free to give me a follow on social media at __take a step __, and reach out to me if you have any questions or just want to connect. With that being said, let's dive in. Welcome back to the Take a Step podcast. I'm excited to be back. I hope you guys are having a great start to 2024 and just putting yourself on a great trajectory and taking action on seeing and achieving some big results this year. Obviously, I took the month of January off because we're making a couple implementations to the podcast to continue to grow the audience and really impact more lives and help people take action towards reaching their God-given potential. And I'd love to kind of tell you guys a little bit about the new implementations that we're making. First, we're adding video to the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube for the first time, welcome. Adding video will allow us to get into the YouTube space and reach people on that platform. With adding video, we are also bringing on occasional guests to really have that interview conversation style, so we can get other perspectives rather than just mine. Even though I know you guys love my perspective, I want to be able to provide a podcast where we can learn and be impacted from the journey and the path that other people have taken, because I think people can really resonate with where other people have come from, where they're going, how they've changed their lives, and I want to be able to provide that on this channel. Outside of that, we are also going to have a new segment each podcast, and that segment's going to be called Who's Taking Steps. And the whole point of that segment is to provide more of audience interaction and really audience engagement. And what that segment will be is I'll open up for people to send in messages through direct messages through any of the socials, any of the Take a Step socials. That's really going to just be a chance for people to reach out and say, hey, this is how I've taken steps forward in my life, or this is how I plan on taking steps forward in my life, so we can highlight that on the podcast. Because I think the more we can really see how people are taking these steps forward, the more we can resonate with that, and the more we can see this community continue to grow and just impact more lives. One thing that I want to say off of that is that I completely understand that a lot of people don't need that recognition. They don't need the words of affirmation. They don't care to be recognized on a podcast, and I get that. But think about it from this perspective. Your success blesses those around you. If somebody hears the message and the story that you have and how you may have implemented a change into your life that allowed for life change for you in your situation, don't you think that they could take that and potentially implement that in their lives to be a better person and to take action on something that will help them maximize their God-given potential? Think about it from the perspective of having that personal obligation, to where if you've seen results, positive results that have helped you to trend towards the kind of person that you want to be, let's share that, and let's have others hear that as well, so that they could potentially implement that in their lives to continue to grow this community. So going off of that, one of the questions that I've really been wrestling with in my head is, why do I care to continue to grow and build this podcast and build the Take a Step brand? Obviously, from a selfish perspective, I love the idea of seeing big, setting big goals, achieving big goals. I love building this brand. I want to build it into a successful business one day. But at the end of the day, it has to be something greater than that. There has to be a greater purpose than just me wanting to build this brand. And to be honest, it's that I want to build this brand so that this brand can impact those and build a community that's all around maximizing each individual's God-given potential and providing, maybe some content that will help people to take action in their lives towards reaching that potential. So that's, what I really want to build this brand around. There's a great book I'm reading right now. It's called Know What You're For by Jeff Henderson. And one thing he said in it that I took a lot out of, he said, if a business was a person, many businesses would be considered narcissists, and narcissism is bad for business. There's something powerful about being for your purpose and knowing what your purpose is so that other people can resonate with that purpose. And you're not the only person that's saying what you're for, but other people are saying that exact same thing. Your audience is saying that exact same thing. And I want Take a Step to be known for being a brand that has a desire to have an impact on its community and being for its community. So as we transition into 2024, obviously at the beginning of every year, goals are top of mind for so many people. I've always been a big, a goal junkie. I love setting goals, kind of analyzing how I did with my goals last year. And I think, the self-help, personal development industry, puts down the New Year's resolution idea because, with that, connotation of resolutions, no one usually sticks to those. They set big, lofty goals. They're great for the month of January. Then as the year continues, those usually fade away. But if I personally think that the new year is a great time to kind of analyze, how you performed last year. It's a good standard to be able to measure, hey, over the last 365 days, at the turn of this calendar year, what do I want to do different? What kind of goals do I want to achieve? How can I set higher goals than I did last year? So I'd love to share a couple of my goals for this year. Maybe some of you can take something out of that. But first, every year I like to kind of set either a word or a phrase that's going to define overarchingly who I am and who I want to be this year. In 2023, for me, that was growth. I wanted to grow personally. I wanted to take a step. I wanted to grow in my full-time career, in my marriage, in my faith, in my fitness. Just holistically, I wanted to grow as a human being. And this year, my phrase that I set for myself is I want to be others first. I want to be focused on growing and developing those around me. And to be honest, something I always struggle with is I've always had an ego issue. I want the attention. I want the spotlight. I want the words of affirmation. That's something that I've always personally struggled with, and I recognize that in myself. And this year, I want to really make it a priority to focus on those around me, build up those around me, put the attention on those around me, because I think if we all have that mindset, then we will build a better world to live in. So for my goals for this year, I'll kind of just go down the list. First of all, from a physical standpoint, I ran my first marathon last year, and I was thinking, what can I set off of that? And I love the experience of running, and one of those experiences is trail running, and I want to run an ultra marathon. So one of my goals this year is to complete an ultra marathon, but do that while still weighing over 185 pounds. My kind of sitting weight with, my fitness level and nutrition is, between 185 and 190 typically. And I want to be able to complete an ultra marathon, but still prioritize my strength training, my nutrition to where it allows me to, remain in my aesthetic build and not lose weight just because I'm increasing my mileage. So run an ultra marathon while weighing 185 pounds. From a personal perspective, my next goal is I want to put myself around 3 to 5 mentors that I respect, that I trust. And when I think about mentors, I think about someone who has a perspective that I respect, has an outlook on life that is optimistic but also realistic. I don't want someone who's just going to, make me feel good about myself and tell me, I'm doing great and just want to pick me up the whole time. If there's something that I need to implement or something that I need to change or adjust, I want them to be real and be comfortable telling me that, or be comfortable, maybe hurting my feelings at times if it means that it's going to help me become a better man. So I want to put 3 to 5 mentors in my life, these guys, whether it fits from a fitness perspective, a business perspective, marriage perspective, or maybe down the road parenting perspective, but just guys that holistically I respect and trust and believe in their perspective and their outlook on life. Number 3, from my marriage perspective and just from a weekly goal, I want to take my wife Jaden on one date night a week. And, sometimes, a date night doesn't always have to be fine dining, spending, $100, $150 at a restaurant. Sometimes those are great nights and they create great memories, but I want to be intentional just about creating memories and creating etched memories that we will, be able to remember. And sometimes those are spontaneous. Sometimes those just happen to happen. But I want to be intentional behind actually planning out those on a weekly basis, because I think that will build a better marriage the more memories we have together and give us something to look forward to every week. My next goal in relating to my faith is, I spend, when I wake up every morning, I have my quiet time where I'll pray, I'll do my reading in the Bible. But to be more intentional with that, and I started doing this at the end of last year, I want to carry this over throughout this year, and maybe it'll be, a never-ending just routine that I implement into the mornings. But I want to journal my prayers. I think that'll, wake my mind up in the morning and not allow me to kind of fall asleep as as I just wake up early in the morning, just kind of praying in my mind. But I want to be intentional about journaling my prayers, waking my mind up, and getting more connected with God from an intentional perspective. So journaling my prayers throughout the rest of this year is another one of my goals. One more goal I have is to be honest, I want to monetize this podcast in some way at some point in this year. And I goes back to what I was saying earlier of, why do I want to continue to grow this? I want to, and monetize this specifically, is I want to monetize this so I can invest back more into, this podcast and building the brand so that I can create higher quality content. And with higher quality content, we'll get more views. And hopefully if the content seems to make a difference in people's lives, then that's more lives that will be impacted towards my mission, which is to inspire people to inspire and build a community around, taking action to maximize each individual's God-given potential. So if we can monetize that and continue to invest and build and grow the brand, then that mission will be fulfilled. I fully 100% believe. So outside of that, I do have other ambitious business goals related to my full-time career. But that's just a list of my goals. Maybe some of you guys resonate with that, but I challenge you to really set ambitious goals for this year. One thing that I would say has been a weakness for me in the past is I've always set goals that I think are honestly just too attainable, because if I'm really honest with myself, I'm afraid of getting uncomfortable at times. I do think, relatively speaking, I think I'm a hard worker, and I think that hard work has brought me some results in my life. And now that I've seen those results, I think sometimes it tends to allow me to set more attainable goals, because I think I can just continue the same hard work that I've done in my life and reach those goals, and I can. But the problem with that is it allows me to work hard, quote unquote, but still be comfortable at the same time. I want to set goals this year that force me, if I want to reach those goals, it forces me to get uncomfortable and get outside of my comfort zone. So I'm excited to see what happens. Potentially, there's the risk in that is not achieving some goals if they're too lofty. But I really want to push myself this year, and I challenge you guys to set goals that push you to reach that next level that, might be a reach goal and might cause you to get uncomfortable, but allows you to, if you are able to reach those goals, can take massive steps forward towards being the person that you want to become. One of the books I'm reading right now that I've actually known about for a long time, and a lot of you guys probably know about it as well, And it relates very well to this concept of goal setting, but it's Atomic Habits and by James Clear. And one of the things he talks about, I'm about halfway through it right now, but one of the things he talks about in the beginning is the idea of habits being greater than goals. And he says this, he says, goals are good for setting direction, but systems or habits are best for making progress. Now, why is that? And he gives 4 reasons that I think are so powerful as to why, implementing the right systems and the right habits day to day are so much more powerful to focus on rather than focusing on attaining that goal that you set. So number 1, he says, winners and losers have the same goals. The goals you set don't necessarily determine the results you're going to get. For example, I'm a pretty big Atlanta Falcons fan. Let's put this in the NFL's perspective. I'm a pretty big Atlanta Falcons fan, unfortunately, at least in recent history. But the Falcons, I guarantee you at the beginning of each year, have the Super Bowl on their minds. Why would they show up and play the game if winning is not the goal? So I guarantee you they have that Super Bowl on their minds at the beginning of each season, but so do the Chiefs. And somehow the Chiefs make it there every year, but the Falcons don't. So obviously the goal had nothing to do with the results they got, but the habits and the systems that the coaches implement, that they have in their practices, that the players take on and off the field, that is what helps them get to that next level of reaching the Super Bowl each year, because it's something that they implement on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily one goal that they set far out into the future. Number 2, he says, achieving a goal is only a momentary change. The goals you set, or you achieve a goal and then fall back into your old habits typically. If I set a goal and I work all this time to get there, then I change for that momentary time that I was working towards that goal and achieve that goal. And then typically what we see in our world today is once people achieve their goals, they don't have something to work for at this point. So now they'll fall back into the person they were and the habits that they had before they were working for that goal. If you focused on the systems and fell in love with the process of getting to that goal, then that consistency of implementing that system is what will continue to make consistent change towards being the person you want to be over time. Number 3 is goals restrict your happiness. If you set a goal and all you're focused on is that goal, then you only feel successful down the road, rather than focusing on the daily implementation of the system and the process and the habits that you instill. If that's where your happiness lies, if you, because of the system that you've implemented, if you, give full effort and are fully satisfied with the work you did today to get to that goal down the road, then you experience that success and that happiness and fulfillment on a daily basis, rather than only allowing yourself to experience success, whenever that goal is reached, if you even reach it. And then 4th and finally, goals are at odds with long-term progress. If the only reason you changed or implemented a new habit or have a new system that you're working through day to day, if the only reason you implemented that is to reach a certain goal, and then once you reach that goal, you fall back into your old ways, then that was just a short-term change, and you haven't actually seen any personal growth and development. So if we can focus, put our focus on loving the process and loving the habits and being fulfilled in those habits, like I said a second ago, then that's how we experience long-term change, because it doesn't matter what goals we have. We've implemented that into who we are. And this relates to kind of what he says following these 4 reasons, is he says implementing habits and becoming, really experiencing growth over time, it calls for an identity shift. And when he's talking about an identity shift, he uses an example of, say, a smoker who's trying to kick the habit of smoking every day, or smoking in general. So identity A, who might have trouble actually kicking the habit of being a smoker, if someone were to offer him a smoke, that person might say something like, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." But person B, who would have a lot higher opportunity to succeed in kicking that habit and changing their identity, would say something along the lines of, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." You see the shift there? One is in the process, or their identity is still in the process of trying to get over that habit, but the other person, their identity is of the mindset of, "I don't do that anymore, that's not who I am." for me, if I was trying to, get in a lot better shape, and maybe running was that avenue for me, and I was maybe trying to run, let's just say I had a goal of a 5-minute mile, someone asked me, hey, what are you doing for running? Or they're just kind of questioning what I was doing. If I had a hard time, really building out the right habits for that and sticking to it, I might say something along the lines of, yeah, I'm trying to run every day. I'm trying to set my alarm and get up at this time so that I can do it, each morning and be consistent with it. But if I had for me to have a much easier time really implementing and sticking to those habits, I might say something along the lines of, yeah, I wake up every day and run. There's a difference that comes into play when you associate your identity with the habits that you're trying to instill. And he says this at the very end of it. He says, your habits embody your identity. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Take a Step podcast. It's a new year, lots of opportunity this year. I challenge you guys, set ambitious goals. And then once you do, don't focus on those goals. Focus on the daily habits that you need to implement in order to get you to that point, and then identify with those habits. Next episode, we'll have our first ever guest on the podcast, so don't miss it. It'll come out 2 Fridays from now. And I'm super excited for it, and I know you guys will enjoy it. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a rating and review on whichever platform you're listening, and I will talk to you in the next episode.